Hey puppies, and welcome back to the Ninja Puppies channel. In today's Ninja Puppies video, we are going to be going over updates that are required to come into Minecraft at some point. Some features that are lacking, that have been announced, and are hopefully going to be coming soon. I'm also maybe making some predictions on what I think 1.20 will be. But for now, let's start off with our first feature that needs to be updated, and probably one of the most obvious when you think of things that need to be updated: the end. The end is rather lacking. The main island, well, the main island and where the actual Ender Dragon boss fight is okay. But also, another thing just to mention quickly is that the Ender Dragon boss fight itself is also pretty lacking. Now, Minecraft is not in any way intended to be a difficult game. It is meant to be pretty much extremely easy in its ways, except for sudden surprises. Like, once you get prepared for the dragon, it's super easy. It can be harder if you're going in with no armor or iron armor, but once you get diamond armor and slow falling potions, you can basically just not worry about the dragon whatsoever. That's kind of the way that Minecraft seems to be made. Mojang try to make the game fairly easy. I don't want it to be a difficult game, definitely not. I don't want it to be like, a hard combat-based game, but that is something to think about. So the dragon fight probably also needs an update. It hasn't been changed in a long time. So, is this good? It means, like, it's a classic part of Minecraft? Well, I mean, yes and no. It was changed in possibly the adventure update, or maybe like 1.3, I can't quite, 1.8, that's what it was, 1.8. It was updated in, and then since then it hasn't been changed at all. The dragon is extremely predictable and very easy to beat. But the emptiness only begins here, and the need for an update. Once you actually kill the Ender Dragon, once you eliminate the Ender Dragon via the kill command, or the even easier way of actually fighting it in survival, an end gateway will open up. This end gateway then takes you to the outer islands, where the real boredom begins. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like the end, and the outer end definitely has a very cool vibe to it that doesn't need to be removed entirely, but the outer end is extremely barren, very repetitive. It is basically the same generation for the entire end island. They are these floating islands with chorus plants on them, tons of endermen, all made out of endstone, and the only thing people come for is this stuff. End cities. Wow, that was like perfect timing. The only thing people come for is end cities. The only reason they come to end cities is because, well, kind of the loot, but the loot is, it's really good loot, but compared to other loot, but it's still pretty bad for things you actually need. So the loot is good, best in the game, but not that amazing, that there's nothing unique or anything. The real unique things are shulkers, so you can get shulker shells and shulker boxes, extremely useful, and then of course everybody knows about the elytra. But if all you're coming here for is two things, people just like rating a lot of these things, it really isn't the greatest. I mean, I keep forgetting that I have cake here. So the elytra and shulker boxes. Those are the two things people come to the end for. I mean, I guess endstone chorus plants are nice, but you don't ever really use them. Chorus fruit can be useful for surviving big drops, if you're accidentally, if you're falling out of the sky, but like, the only way main way you fall out of the sky is if your elytra breaks, so, like, then you need an elytra to really need that. Like, the end cities themselves probably don't need an update. They're all white as is. They've got a pretty complex and pretty looking design. They've got some pretty good loot, decent mobs that are only unique to the structure. All round, the end cities are alright. What really needs an update is the islands. Things like, what if there were added new biomes? Maybe even new mobs, new plants. Literally just a different stone type would be alright. Because, well, all these things need to be updated. Now, one thing I want to go quickly talk about is the fact that the end's vibe. What is the end's vibe? Well, the end's vibe is very desolate. Not ignoring that, it's extremely empty. It's barren. The music, which occasionally plays, is quite interesting. It's definitely got a vibe of desolation in a way. Not really like post-apocalyptic desolation. It doesn't look like the world's been you know, completely destroyed. It just feels like you're in a very alien, empty landscape of almost like a place with no life, really. Like you went into any other planet humanity has ever discovered. So it is quite interesting, and that can stick around. One example of this I wanted to point out quickly was Nullscape, made by the incredible data pack creator Starmute. Now, I don't think I've ever actually done a Nullscape review on this channel, but I do want to at some point. Nullscape is a data pack, generation data pack that changes up the end while keeping the vibe the same. So it doesn't add a bunch of new mobs, doesn't add plant life or anything real like that. It keeps the end very desolate, alien, cool looking like that, and very void-like, while also adding in new features, new blocks, and more reasons to explore in the end. That is the one thing that Mojang should do. The second thing we're going to talk about today is actually something that you may not immediately think of when you're thinking of what needs to be updated, and that is an enchanting table. So if you've played Minecraft for a decent while, you probably know how enchanting works. You get an enchanting table, you get diamonds, you get a diamond pickaxe, you get some obsidian, you get some more diamonds, you make an enchanting table, put some bookshelves around it, and then you enchant things. Pretty easy. But is enchanting actually getting a little old? Well, possibly. Enchanting, I can't actually remember when enchanting was added, but it's been a little while since enchanting was added, and it hasn't been updated much since it was added. Does this mean that enchanting should be updated? Now, personally, I enjoy enchanting quite a bit. Just the, I don't know, like the RNG of it, the mystery of it, the suspense. I like these kinds of things. But the real thing to think about is enchanting useful? Enchantments are extremely useful, and they don't really need to add too many more enchantments, except for just like specific chestplate enchantments would be nice. But they don't really need to add any more enchantments. How else do you get enchantments in Minecraft? So if enchantments are really powerful, but enchanting tables themselves aren't very powerful, then what is? Well, the answer to that question is villagers. Villagers can trade enchanted books. Librarian villagers, like lots of people get mending villagers, but you can actually get villagers for every single enchantment in Minecraft, actually including treasure enchantments, sorry, my bad. Except Soul Speed and Swift Sneak. But other than those two enchantments, you can get one for every single enchantment in Minecraft. And the thing is, you don't need experience levels or lapis to do that. All you need is emeralds. And with the zombification and then curing process, you can get it down to just one book and one emerald for every enchantment in Minecraft each. So you can just get a stack of emeralds, and then you can get a stack of enchanted books with efficiency 5, sharpness 5, mending. And it's all exactly the same. No combination to get sharpness 5, nothing like that. Villagers are actually an OP in a way. They're pretty overpowered compared to an enchanting table. Enchanting tables are what you use for your first set of diamond and enchanting gear. After that, you might move on to villagers. I personally don't use this technique because I don't like fiddling around with villagers, but if you're willing to do it in like big survival worlds or server settings and stuff, it's a very good idea. So does enchanting need an update? Well, maybe enchanting should be changed up a bit. Maybe, now personally I don't really have any ideas on how they could really change up enchanting. Maybe they almost need to nerf librarians just so that you have to, you know, use enchanting more. But maybe they could add some sort of different bookshelves, maybe even just update bookshelves themselves and make it so there's different ways to get different enchantments, different locations to get different enchantments or something like that. Maybe update it, because like, look at this, you have bookshelves transferring galactic alphabet to an enchanted magical block with a book that opens as you approach and follows you around. That is incredibly cool and magical like that. But a villager standing in a cell giving you magic, like, that's just boring. So enchanting does need a bit of an update. Another thing that needs to be updated is some of the mobs of Minecraft. So there are plenty and plenty of mobs in Minecraft, as you can see by all these spawn eggs, but not all of them are as fleshed out as others. Some mobs, like I said, villagers and even allies, axolotls a bit, some like phantoms, pandas, all of those mobs are quite fleshed out, but some mobs such as polar bears, bats, and a few others really aren't very fleshed out at all. So do we need a mob update? Well, probably. at least some mobs that do need to be updated. So we have polar bears here, who I believe they were added in because they were Jens's wife's favorite animal. I may have got that confused with a different animal, but I feel like that was the case. I think I heard that somewhere. So that's fair, they're nice. Polar bears are cool, they look quite cuddly, they're dangerous. But things like polar bears, and especially things like bats. Nobody likes bats. Bats are terrible. I'm literally already being tortured. Bats are terrible. Nobody likes bats. Bats don't have really any use at all. So do we need updates to these types of mobs? Probably yes. What that means is adding new features, giving them different variations and things. So having useless, quotation marks applied, mobs in Minecraft isn't the end of the world, because, I mean, if they add some sort of atmosphere to a biome, you can see where I'm segueing into for this. But having useless mobs isn't the end of the world, but it would be nice if they had some sort of features, like, for example, riding polar bears. I mean, probably not, that doesn't make much sense, but whenever I see a polar bear, I'm like, just throw a saddle on its back and ride. So things like polar bears, bats, do they need an update? Probably. I mean, bats could be fairly easy to update. You could just give them cool features, have them interact with different things easier. So maybe necessarily you don't have to add in different types of polar bears. Maybe add in a different mob that polar bears interact with more, or make them hunt fish more, or make them interact more with blue ice or something. Maybe they really like to avoid blue ice or something. Give them something interesting and give them some sort of use, even a technical one, or just a cool, just make them cuter or something. But as for mobs that add atmosphere, you can see that every thumbnail is now decorated with the 2 pixels of remembrance right here. Fireflies. Fireflies were cut from 1.19 because apparently they're dangerous to frogs. And I could talk for 10 minutes about how that's the most weird reason to remove a mob of all time, considering they literally didn't remove cookies, even though cookies are pretty useless, which I'll talk about later. So cookies are poisonous to parrots, or chocolate is, and they were going to feed them to parrots. I don't know how they made the mistake twice of going to give an animal poisonous food, but don't let merging look after your pet. And so they just kept both of them, separated them, and even made it so when you feed a biscuit to a parrot, it dies. But instead of, oh, I don't know, just keeping fireflies in the game, they decide to cut them out. Yeah, in an update where they add the warden, which kills everything. So, sense, definitely, makes sense, totally, right? Yep, no. So fireflies were cut from the game. Is this good or bad? Well, I guess it's a good thing if they hadn't done much to work with them, since very early on they heard that they were poisonous to frogs, so that they just kind of put it on the back seat from then on, and then later on saw there's not really anything we can actually do with these things now, we're not feeding them to frogs. So that was fair, but then again, could they have just added atmosphere to the swamps? One of the biggest things they said about 1.19 was the atmosphere of the mangrove swamps, and the atmosphere of generally biomes in general. You can see I've set up in a birch forest here. Like, lots of biomes like this don't really have any atmosphere. So do we need more mobs and more life in Minecraft to add sorts of atmosphere to that? I definitely think it's a pretty good idea. For example, things like fireflies, maybe you don't even have to capture them and use them as a light source. If they just added atmosphere to a biome at night, or suddenly, there could have even been a particle effect, to be honest. But atmosphere to more biomes and more areas would be a really cool thing to see. And mobs, or adding more to mobs like polar bears, bats, or even just adding something like fireflies would do a whole lot more to add atmosphere into Minecraft. And continuing on from my latest talk, the thing we're going to be talking about now is a biome update. I've started off in the birch forest for fairly obvious reasons. The birch forest, well, maybe not super obvious reasons. The birch forest was originally said to have been updated in 1.19. They thought they were going to revamp birch forests and give them atmosphere, even little fungi growing on trees, fallen trees, which is actually something that exists in bedrock. All of these things were going to be added into the birch forest, and now they weren't. Biome updates are required to happen in Minecraft, second only to the end update. In fact, I personally think that the biome update should come before the end update. The end update, that's just a biome that you can kind of stay out of because it's boring. Dimension, sorry, that you can stay out of because it's boring. But here, the overworld is where players live, unless they're going crazy and living in the nether or something. So, if you have, say you want to live in this jungle over here, you wouldn't live near the edge, because then you have a view of a birch forest. Now, this is a tall birch forest, so I just got kind of lucky, it looks alright. But generally, birch forests are just really boring. Birch forests are the biome that comes to mind when you think of useless biomes, because they have no use. Even birchwood isn't that great. It's nice because it, you know, I mean, it's a forest, so if you want to chop down a bunch of trees, you can get birchwood, but just make a tree farm or just grow trees and chop them down. But that's not all. So not only did they say they were going to update the birch forest in the wild update, which became a lot less wild by the end of it, they also said they were going to update biomes like the savannah. I believe even the Badlands was included in this. All those biomes were said they were in something called the biome vote. The biome vote is something that happened at Minecraft Live, Minecraft Now, Minecraft Earth, whatever they called it. I keep changing the names, but anyway, the biome vote was where 3 biomes were pitched to the players of Minecraft and said, you know, this is what we'll add if we update this one, this is what we add if we update this one, and so on. And then the players got to vote via Twitter during Minecraft Live to pick one of them to be updated next. The mountains and the Targa have won the 2 mob votes. But what about the 4 actually now, that have lost those votes? We've seen the mountain update, which is pretty cool. We've seen the Targa update, which was alright. But what about the other 3? Well, Mojang have said a couple of times that they will update the other biomes. So does that mean that it's guaranteed that we'll have this? I mean, no. I mean, Mojang don't come back on promises very much, but like, it seems that they might. I mean, actually, yes, they do. I mean, they in a way, they kind of promised that they'd update the birch forest, and then they kind of didn't. But they said that they probably would, but then they kind of didn't. They didn't put a disclaimer of the fact that, like, hey, this is an idea we've had for some time in the future. This might come in our update because this kind of fits the vibe. They kind of went, we're going to update the birch forest and mangrove swamps. And then they're the one that went, like, we're not updating the birch forest. So, generally, the biome update is pretty required. And also, it almost ties in with the mob update. Mobs like, I believe, vultures were going to be added in the savannah update, or maybe the Badlands update, I think. And then the termites were said to be added in the savannah update, along with baobabs. All of these things sound like amazing features that can fit into Minecraft really well. But currently, they don't have any date or any real plans to be added into Minecraft, other than just Mojang's word. Now, I'm not saying that Mojang's word is nothing to go by, but I'm saying that hopefully we do actually see it sometime in the future. That would be nice. Okay, quick pop quiz, puppies. Name a very boring Minecraft feature. 3, 2, 1. Fishing. Yep. If you said fishing, I'm not that surprised. If you said nothing, that's because I surprised you. Fishing is really boring and outdated. I personally kind of like fishing because I feel like it has quite a bit of potential. It's a kind of, I like it for kind of the same reasons as the enchanting. I don't know, I'm weird, I like boring Minecraft features, but I quite like fishing. The idea of the suspense, you don't know what you're going to get, you can enchant the rod, and just the peacefulness of water in Minecraft I quite like. But generally, it's pretty boring. Now, fishing can be useful. If you were to have something like Luck of the Sea 3, if you were to have an enchantment like Luck of the Sea 3, you can actually get some pretty good enchanted books from fishing and things, so it isn't the most useless thing ever, but like I said, villagers are the best way to get enchantments, rather than sitting around like this all day. Fishing really needs an update. This is kind of something that I didn't really need to say. I mean, I did, because this video is about what needs updating, but it kind of goes without saying when you think of features that need to be updated in Minecraft, you're going to think of fishing. Fishing really does. Now, fishing rod enchantments, fishing rods themselves, they have some pretty good enchantments, but they do only have wooden varieties. They're kind of like shields in that way. So, maybe you could have more fishing rods, more things for fishing, more... one thing that's interesting is that jungles, actually, so over there... Oh, I missed it. In jungles, there's actually a chance if you get the junk item of bamboo, but that only happens in jungles. Now that is something that I quite like. We need more biome-specific loot. Maybe in swamps you can fish up slime balls or tadpoles or something, I don't know. Fishing definitely needs an update, and there's a lot of potential for actually to do some cool things with this. You can just keep adding onto it, make it super complex, you can get tons of things, and make it a worthwhile activity that when people are just hanging out in their casual Minecraft world, they might just get out the fishing rod and fish for a while. Make it a recreational activity, just like IO. But, if we want to talk about fishing's usefulness for a second, then you're going to have to talk about pre-1.16. Pre-1.16, fishing was awesome. Amazing. It was not something anyone ever did while they were looking at their screen, but it was amazing. AFK fish farms existed pre-1.16. AFK fish farms were really, really small. They were like 4 blocks long, 2 blocks tall or something like that, and 1 block wide. They really did not need many resources, and you could do incredible things with them. And not only that, they didn't just give you fish. That was pathetic. Fish? No. They gave you things like... Look at it again. They gave you things like enchanted books of mending, sharpness, all these crazy things. You could get enchanted books and enchanted fishing rods. You could get all sorts of amazing things. I really liked AFK fishing. I know some people thought it was kind of cheaty, and that's fair if they wanted to call it cheaty. Like, not everyone had to do it. And it wasn't an exploit though. It was just a clever tactical, it was like a technical farm really. But now, if Mojang are classifying every technical farm that is, kind of gives a lot of items as like an exploit, then watch out, Cyclops, because they're coming for you. I was kind of surprised when they got rid of AFK fishing, but I wasn't that surprised. I was a bit disappointed. AFK fishing does kind of still exist, but they didn't just like change the way that the right-click motion works in regards to note blocks or anything. They really went to an extent of removing the ability to get treasure enchantments from a water pool that's less than 5 by 5, which was like, most ponds aren't 5 by 5. Like, you have to, if you just want a casual manual fishing area now, then you kind of have to build like a big pond rather than just like a small pond. It's kind of annoying. But so fishing actually so fishing was a boring, mostly useless feature that no one ever really liked to do, and Mojang went to the extent of nerfing it in 1.16. They didn't just bother updating it so that we didn't I mean, in the Nether update I kind of see where they didn't, but they didn't make an effort like, oh hey look, hey, enchanted book, fire protection 3. See, that took a while. I do have luck with the C3, and I'm manually fishing, but yeah. So AFK fish farms, do they need to be brought back? No, that's fine if they're not brought back. It's fine if they don't want AFK fishing to exist in Minecraft anymore. There are really complex versions, but they aren't accurate. You know, they aren't 100%. They work on timing and tripwires, and they've actually become even more technical than they were before. So, does fishing need an update? Yes. Does AFK fishing need a comeback? Not necessarily. I wouldn't be upset if it did come back, because it would really provide an alternative to villagers, which is quite a good thing. But, yeah, it's definitely not necessary, but it's something to think about. Fishing needs an update. So, think about one of the biggest mechanics in Minecraft. When you're talking about biggest mechanics in Minecraft, 2 things probably come to mind, and it's the 2 things that are in item frames right here. Combat, and also we'll be talking about that later on. Combat is not the main focus of Minecraft. It's definitely not a combat-based game. If you're looking for a combat-based game called Minecraft, check out Minecraft Dungeons. But Minecraft combat isn't exactly the main focus of the game in any way, but doesn't need an update. Yes. Minecraft's combat has been updated before, but it's also very different, on different editions of Minecraft. So Java Edition has very different combat to Bedrock Edition. This is very much not a very Mojang way of doing things. So, Java Edition, how do you fight something? Well, let me get some husks. Java Edition combat is about getting out a sword or an axe and hitting something, waiting until your refill bar charges up underneath the crosshair or wherever you have it displayed, and then taking out the mob that's nearby you before it takes you out. You can also add in critical hits, which is where you jump and are falling while you hit the mob to get easier kills in, but generally that's all there is to combat. Does it need more things to combat? Does combat need more features, or need to be more complex or more difficult? No. I mean, I wouldn't be that upset if Minecraft combat got more complex and more difficult, but I'd say some of the younger players of Minecraft might be. Like I said before, Minecraft is definitely not meant to be a difficult game in any way. It's meant to be a pretty easy game. There's even peaceful difficulty if you want to go like fully easy, so maybe that's an option. But does Minecraft's combat need to be harder? No. Does Minecraft's combat need to be updated? Yes. The biggest thing that needs to happen is Java and Bedrock's combat mechanisms to be exactly the same. Mojang are very much about making Bedrock and Java pretty much exactly the same, except we have an offhand in your face. Other than the offhand, Minecraft, Java, and Bedrock are pretty similar. There's another very big change. Bedrock are spammers. In Bedrock Edition, you don't have a refill bar, which means you can literally just... Which, as you can see here, it takes me a very long time to kill something by doing this. On Bedrock Edition, which I always find this hard to believe because I never played Bedrock, every shot here would be doing the same amount of damage. As me waiting for the whole duration of it to recharge. If I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I've watched even any Bedrock footage, so if I'm not entirely mistaken there, that's how Bedrock works. Now, is that a real issue? Well, personally, I think it kind of isn't the way that Java combat should move to Bedrock rather than the other way around, because Bedrock's combat is simpler. Now, there will be people that will argue this, because there are people that still play pre-combat update, the first combat update that's happened, because they really like spamming. A lot of servers and things still play, not that many servers, but some servers still play pre-combat updates so that combat can just be spam clicking as fast as you can. Personally, I quite like the change. I did start playing after the combat update, but I'm completely, I quite like Minecraft's combat in that sense. Does it need to be more complex? Well, yes, but the main reason that I added combat into this list is because a combat update is already in the works and has already been released in experimental snapshots. Wait, what? 1.20 is confirmed? Actually, no. Jens himself has been personally working on a project called the Combat Test for a while, or he was, before he I'm pretty sure he kind of stopped coding for Minecraft and it's kind of gone more, I think he's like the chief creative officer or something, I can't exactly remember his position, but I'm pretty sure he announced recently that he's kind of stepping back from coding and letting the coders code. But before he stepped back from coding, he was working on his own experimental snapshots, which were the combat tests that added all sorts of kind of new features. They added things like stackable potions, new changes to the combat bar. It was a really good, and it seemed like they were kind of on quite a roll to getting Minecraft's combat to be quite good. But does that mean a combat update is confirmed to happen in the future? Actually, no. There's a chance that a combat update could never happen. These were very experimental, weren't available in the Minecraft launcher. They were like separately released on I think like Minecraft's Twitter or possibly Jens's Twitter, rather than being available to the masses. It was really just, well, they were available to anyone, but it was just kind of the idea of really experimental things that could or may never make it into the game, even more so than snapshots or experimental snapshots are. So, does Minecraft need a combat update? Yes, probably. It definitely needs parity between the two editions, 100,000%, because in case you haven't heard the news, if you own Java Edition right now, you officially are being gifted Bedrock tomorrow. Tomorrow for me. I'm filming this today before 1.19 was released. They are also added, so everyone that has Java Edition is going to get Bedrock Edition for free. Now, funnily enough, when I bought Minecraft, they had this promo that went on for quite a few years, which was that if you bought Java Edition, you also got Windows 10 Minecraft for free. Now, I actually never claimed this before I got before the actual timer ran out for that. The reason the timer ran out for that is because I guess they were doing this, so they just, I mean, I don't really know why they're trying to stop anyone from claiming it or anything. But another thing is that Xbox Game Pass had both of them, and they kind of announced that both of the editions were coming to Xbox Game Pass. I think they announced that like Bedrock Edition, Java Edition was coming to Game Pass. So now I'm pretty sure you can get both of them on Game Pass, and now if you solidly buy one of them, you'll just get the other for free. You'll get access to it, which is quite cool. I can't wait to play around in Bedrock and laugh about no offhand. So yeah, it's interesting. But the main point of me saying that, I kind of forgot why I was saying that, is actually because combat is very different on both editions. And now that they're literally giving people both editions for free, well, not both editions for free, the other edition for free, people are really going to be able to notice that, and it's going to be very clear when something is majorly different on both editions. So it's quite different. Now, Bedrock does have quite differences from Java, like offhand, and also just the way it's laid out. It seems, no offense, but it seems more like a mobile game. So it's, yeah, there's quite the difference between Bedrock and Java, but one of the biggest changes is combat. Does combat need an update? Definitely. The next thing we're going to be talking about is how on earth a woodland mansion generated in a plains biome. Nah, just kidding, I put that there. The next thing we're going to be talking about is a structure update. Starting off, we're going to be talking about the woodland mansions. Now you may be thinking, woodland mansions need an update? Woodland mansions are like the biggest, or at least second biggest structure in Minecraft. They've got all these different rooms, all of these amazing things in them. Why on earth would a woodland mansion need an update? Well, actually, they do. Right now, they are definitely a mansion. They're really big, and they're pretty cool. I quite like the idea of woodland mansions. I've never found a woodland mansion in survival. Well, technically I did find one by accident when I was speedrunning, but I've actually never raided a woodland mansion in survival. But the main reason for that is there's no point. Raiding woodland mansions. Pre 1.14, raiding woodland mansion was awesome. It was a great idea because you can kill these guys. These guys drop this, a Totem of Undying, which if you have an offhand, I will continue to tease you about that. Which you can put in your offhand, and that way, if a Vindicator kills you, or anything kills you, you won't die. You'll come back with a bit of fire resistance, regeneration, absorption, cool things, and then the totem is consumed. Very helpful. But the thing is, in 1.14, raids were added. Amazing. I really love raids, and I love raid farms, especially the craziness that you can get with raid farms. But the thing to think about is, why on earth would someone go all the way to a woodland mansion, the rarest structure in Minecraft, risk their lives so much just to kill a couple of evokers that don't respawn, when they could instead make a raid farm really cheap and easy and get infinite Totems of Undying with no risk? Woodland mansions need an update. They need something that draws the players in, something unique to woodland mansions. These are the homes of evokers, the most magical creatures in the game, and vindicators, the most horror movie creatures in the game. Well, actually, no, that would be the warden. The most axe-wielding creature in the game. Maybe that's a brute. No, it's a brute. The brute always... What do you even have going for you, man? Plus, they're incredible. They're a huge, giant mansion house. I mean, think of all the cool stuff that you could put inside of this house, other than just some pillagers and illagers. Like, there could be so much more to woodland mansions than what there is right now. Previously to 1.14, they did have two unique entities in them. They had evokers that were unique, they had vindicators that were unique, and also obviously Totems of Undying, which they dropped. All of this stuff was unique to the mansion. Now the only thing they have unique about it is the fact that they're big. Really big. And now they're not even going to be the biggest structure in Minecraft, now that ancient cities are being added. So woodland mansions are a structure that desperately need an update, because there's really zero point of raiding them, other than just to say I've raided them. There's the further incentive of a small chance. I mean, there is these loot chests, but like, amazing. There's some bones, a diamond hoe, which is kind of funny, and then power 4. There's the further incentive of a couple of diamond blocks that sometimes generate some obsidian, but in the end, like, no one really raids a structure for diamond blocks these days. This isn't 2012. No one raids structures for diamond blocks like it isn't the end of the world. Most people like burn these things down and blow them up for some reason, which I mean they do need an update, but that's a bit excessive. With all of the space that always generates in Woodland Mansions, imagine all of the cool secrets and additional things that they could add into it. With this many blocks to play with this huge amount of an area, and with this rarity to play with, they really could go wild with their imagination on this thing. Because they could add in some kind of almost OP things, like they could add in some new weapons, some new tools, they could add in some new craft ingredients or something kind of very ancient city-like, in a way, and that would just be incredible to see, because these things are even rarer than ancient cities. These things are really rare. They're easier to raid than ancient cities, but they're really rare and really big, so there really is a lot of potential for these things. Because if they added some new tool into shipwrecks, that would be pretty OP, and you could get a lot of them if there was some, you know, cool weapon in shipwrecks that pirates used to use, which, granted, sounds kind of cool, but it also wouldn't make much sense because, I mean, it's kind of, yeah, shipwrecks are really common. But Woodland Mansions, on the other hand, they're very rare and they have a lot of potential of having cool things in them. There's also a couple of other structures that need to be upgraded. Dungeons are also in desperate need of an update. They're pretty alright, and the spawner in them is helpful. They do actually, so they have something useful about them, unlike Woodland Mansions. But generally, dungeons need an update. Another structure that probably needs an update is mine shafts. Probably need an update as well. They're pretty empty, but they also have cave spider swarms, which is alright, but there could be more to them. So generally, structures do need an update in Minecraft. Do they all need to be updated at once? Probably not, but certain things, like if they ever do another Illager update, or, I mean, Woodland Mansion update on its own could probably be pretty cool. And before we move on to our final thing to complete our list of everything that needs to be updated in Minecraft, I also want to give a shout out to a couple of other things, such as fletching tables. Fletching tables definitely need to be updated at some point in the future. They currently do nothing other than a workstation. They said for a while that they'd probably get some sort of addition. Hopefully we'll actually see a use for a fletching table other than just workstation. Smithing tables were like that for a while, now they upgrade to netherite, but also I'm very excited to hopefully see more uses for smithing tables in the future. And also I wanted to say something about shields. It would be cool to see maybe some different types of shields added into there. Not necessarily like diamond shields, iron shields, netherite shields, but like maybe if we got some sort of unique shields to certain biomes, kind of like how tridents are unique to drowned. That's kind of a cool idea. Maybe we could get something like that, but shields that are unique to mobs or structures. Second and final pop quiz of the video. Think of a very important Minecraft feature. 3, 2, 1. Food. Food is an extremely important Minecraft feature. In fact, it may actually be the most important. Without food, you will die on hard difficulty. Without food on normal and easy difficulty, you're probably going to die. Food is an extremely important resource. You need to eat food at some point. If you stop eating food, you won't be able to regen your health naturally. Then after that, you won't be able to sprint. And then after that, if you keep on walking around or keep on doing things to get yourself hungry, you'll eventually starve a little bit on easy, a lot on normal, and all the way to death on hard difficulty. So food itself, well, it makes a lot of sense. You eat the food to replenish your hunger, which once you get enough hunger, it replenishes your health, and there's also saturation things. So food on its own, like that, food in that sense doesn't need an update. What does need an update is look at all of these foodstuffs. Now this isn't actually as many as I kind of remember it sometimes, but there are a lot of things you can eat in Minecraft. Now think about everything that you will eat, not including when you're trying to get a balanced diet advancement. Think about all the things that you will eat in Minecraft. I would say bread, you might eat at some points. You're probably going to eat some steak. You can eat some cooked pork chops if you are having if you have a hoglin farm. Those are really good. You probably might eat some sweet berries early on if you have a target nearby. Honey bottles can be good because you can drink them after you're fully full and still get saturation. So that's a very specific time. And then golden apples, I'm not really including those because they have their own uses. They're very specific. Other than that, everything else you eat is kind of additional. I will kind of give a small shout out to cooked fish. Sometimes that can be an alright alternative to like bread early on if you really don't have any wheat or a lot of wheat or anything like that. Possibly that could be helpful. But generally, all the other food other than these 5 that I put down here are pretty much useless. I mean, baked potatoes are alright. Actually, I'll give baked potatoes a shout out. Like, they're alright. Things like cooked rabbit, cooked chicken is alright. Mutton, all of these other things are possible food sources that you could eat. But in a way, if you think about cooked rabbit or cooked chicken, it's just a worse version of cooked steak and cooked pork chops. One thing, the biggest thing to think about with food is that there's nothing unique to certain foods. Not including these 2 things. The only 2 foods that have something, only 3 foods that have something unique about them. Oh, whoops, are rotten flesh, spider eyes, and dried kelp. Or I guess cake, because you can place it down and it's a block, and I suppose honey bottles, I'll include that. Being kind of generous here, the only 5 food sources that have anything special about them are honey bottles, because you can eat them when full and they provide more saturation, cake, because it's a block and it's useless, rotten flesh, because it can give you hunger. Actually, technically raw chicken can do that as well. Raw chicken can actually give you hunger as well, my bad. Spider eyes, because they poison you, and dried kelp. I'm not including poisonous potatoes, because poisoning you, like, I'm not including poisonous potatoes as a cool food. Dried kelp can be eaten faster. And I guess honey bottles are also in a bottle, so that's something. But generally, all of these foods are pretty much useless. There's some foods that are really useless, such, I guess, pufferfish. Okay, pufferfish is poisonous as well. Actually, if I include things that are useful, that are actually good about them, so if I think about things that are actually helpful, a positive addition that makes them different from other foods, only cake, actually not cake, honey bottles and dried kelp are the only 2 that have a positive, not including these 2, thing that separates them from all other foods. So only these 2 things. Other things like pufferfish are very dangerous to eat, rotten flesh can give you hunger, raw chicken can give you hunger. That's cool, but that just means that they're even worse than regular foods. So food really is an update because some foods are just really useless. There's beetroot, which turns into beetroot soup, which is the only thing helpful about beetroot, and then you can sell them and stuff. But beetroot soup, well, it's non-stackable, which really just rules it out as a potential food source. Then there's foods like tropical fish, completely useless. Poisonous potatoes are useless, and that's kind of the idea, is to have them as useless, but, you know. So a lot of these foods are really, really kind of useless, in a way. What would be cool to see is if all of these foods had something special about them that they really added in to Minecraft. Something that made them unique and gave them their own personality and their own incentives to actually eating them. Such as how honey bottles can be eaten and they're liquid, or dried kelp being eaten faster. I really like that idea. Maybe things could have different eating times. Like, for example, eating an entire steak maybe if eating an entire steak actually took a little bit longer. But say eating a cooked chicken was really quick. And that way maybe you can eat like 1.5 cooked chickens in the time it takes you to eat 1 steak. So they can almost balance each other out as potential food sources, something like that. Maybe fish can be eaten even quicker. And bread or can be eaten a little bit slower, or it has even more saturation than it has now. But generally, there's the difference of not just, you know, because what we go for now when you think of a food source, not including the extra 2 things that have positive stuff, is stuff with the most saturation and shanks. That would be snake, cooked pork chops, and also like rabbit stew, beetroot soup. So these 4 things are the only ones that give good shanks and saturation, really. Even mutton is slightly worse, chicken is slightly worse, rabbit's slightly worse, pumpkin pie is alright. But generally, there probably needs to be something more to a lot of foods. Whether this is some sort of cooking ability or, you know, having even more foods added. But if you just said, well, bread gets replaced by steak and cooked pork chops. So what if we had bread and butter or something, you know, then we added butter, and then there was bread and butter, but then you're just adding another food that you probably also won't use. So it would be cool to have some sort of special abilities. I'm not really talking about status effects. Not everything needs to be a golden apple. Not everything needs to have some sort of status effect to it. Definitely not. I'm not saying that, you know, eating a melon slice should give you swiftness or something, give you speed, because, you know, our melon slices are light and have sugar in them, or something like cookies shouldn't give you speed. But if all these things had something special about them, it would be nice. So a food update is one of the hardest things, because I can't really come up with too many ideas for what they could do, but I feel like some of the latest foods that they added, in fact, I think the 3 latest foods they added were glowberries, dried kelp. So dried kelp was added in 1.13, and even though it's really useless because it only restores half a heart of health, sorry, half a shank. Oh, I can't speak. Even though dried kelp only restores half a shank, the fact that it has a different eating time is kind of interesting, and that's something that makes it unique. And so it's something to actually think about. Glowberries were added recently, but they're just sweet berries that glow. But they do have a uniqueness in how they grow. Let's see, I can't really... They do have the uniqueness of the fact that they grow on the vine, but it just made them really hard to farm, to be honest. So a food update would be really cool to see in Minecraft. And so that concludes this Ninja Puppies video of 8 things that I feel like should be added and updated in Minecraft soon. There are a few other things that needed to be updated at some point, but that's a basic rundown of what I feel. What do I feel if I was to choose any of these things that probably were coming in 1.20? If I was to think of one of these things that would come in 1.20, I would say probably either the end update or the biome update, personally, though I'm not ruling out the combat update coming fairly soon. But all of those are just random predictions, random guesses I had. I definitely don't know that for sure. Oh, wandering traders coming here. Wandering traders need an update as well. They need to be, if they want to be slightly useful. But that is going to conclude this video. I think for now, I'll see you soon.